morning, KLV Podcast listeners. This is Bryan here. Today we're going to do things a little bit differently. As you can see, Meg and I will still be having a conversation. It'll just be edited and side by side, possibly. But today's topic that I wanted to get into was overthinking. And for a lot of entrepreneurs or visionaries, a lot of us have a common trait of overthinking. It can possibly block you from reaching your goals or have you question yourself, doubt yourself. So today, I want to talk about what are some of the things that people like us can do to overcome that, to reach our goals. And yeah, let's get into it.
Hey, Bryan, and hey, KLV Podcast listeners. So thank you, Bryan, for setting this up. This is another way we were trying to be creative and still create a show for you guys and still create content. This just in. we, as you know, are affected by the COVID thing going on here, and we've had to reduce hours, and that's what we were doing for the last 2 or 3 weeks or something like this, right? So with B working from home and me and us working from home, so that's how it was, and we just reduced our hours in response to this. Like many of you out there, we have also applied for unemployment, so I think this is just good information to put out there just to let you know, hey, yes, we're doing all the things that you think maybe we're doing. I think knowing that other companies, small businesses like ourselves, are having to scale back and how we're handling it is like this, and I think it would be helpful. We've filed for unemployment. We're going to be taking 0 paychecks from the company for at least the next 3 months in this second quarter. And that means that we're trying to get the most benefits out of the unemployment right now. But we're not actually getting the full benefit, and I'm not really sure why. So we're all in this together in terms of how we're going to bounce back. We're just a part of that industry that we're kind of treading in uncharted waters. So we're just going to do our best as a company. We're going to follow our mandate by the state and the government and do what we need to do. So we're probably, things like this between B and I, we're not going to be able to do moving forward for the foreseeable future. So most content will be coming from me and Kevin when we get around to it. The show will continue. I definitely don't want to kill it or anything like that. But yeah, things like this is going to be pushed to the wayside where we can't technically pay Bryan. He's basically unemployed now, as am I. I'm an unemployed worker now. So yeah, that's the update from the company standpoint, and hopefully we'll still be able to put out some great content for you. So thank you, B, for putting this together.
So Meg, let's start with you. Can you talk about your personal experience with overthinking and possibly about times where you had an idea, a plan, maybe for a month, this grand scheme, and possibly you started to overthink, you started to doubt. Can you talk about what you did and how you overcame that, how you didn't overcome that? Go ahead and talk to us about that.
So a time that I experienced overthinking recently was, I think I'd have to say, I think I'm not on the outside, I don't think I'm an overthinker, but I'm definitely an overthinker when it comes to emotional things. I'm the emotional component of this company. So a lot of things I take, my personality in general takes things very personally. So I've read, and my personality as an advocate, an advocate. So in 16 personalities, that's one of them. In the letters, it's like, I forgot what the letters are, but I'm an introvert, and I tend to take things very personally, and I'm very judgmental. So in terms of overthinking, definitely, and in my experience in this company, my overthinking became really damaging when I was first starting to form and create the recruiting and hiring mechanism of this company. So as I moved out of the company, because I shot for KLV for about 7 years, and then I was shooting about on and off from that 7-year retirement to last year. So I would say for a good 10 years I've been shooting, right, and trying to get somebody to really replace me. And we've had a couple of really close ones, really good seconds for Kevin. But I was kind of always there in terms of being a backup. And one of the ways that I could make sure, because I really did not want to shoot, I had to find a way to replace me and find somebody who's not only going to replace me, but be better than me in the role. And during that time, when I first hired somebody, I really didn't know what I was doing, and I would overthink the thing, like in terms of how do I find the right person. It was like, oh, let me put them through a myriad of trials and tribulations and judgments and tasks and tests. And that got me so far. That got me to a place where I had a lot of people who were just straight up afraid. Afraid of me, afraid of the system that we have here. And it was actually just a true reflection of how kind of toxic and monstrous that we can be when we overthink and be like, oh, well, I want you to be this amazing, perfect being of a photographer, so I'm going to try to mold every little thing, you know what I mean? So like, as I'm whittling away, you're this raw piece of material, and I want to control like freaking everything, right? So if I were to think about it metaphorically, overthinking to me became trying to control too many things that I didn't need to, and I was focused on the wrong thing when I was overthinking. And I feel like B is a great example of my progress. Nobody's perfect, and it's because I'm not perfect. So I could not ever attempt to attract the perfect candidate for us, because I myself am not even worthy of it yet. You know what I mean? Like, so in a way, the reason why I think like somebody, for example, B is in our employ before is because personally we had grown to such a level that we could attract and allow somebody like him, and the attributes that he has, that he's, super committed, very loyal, just down to do it, down to do what is requested of him, albeit with mistakes, albeit with ups and downs, excelling here and needing improvement here, so not being somebody who's A+ everywhere. That's not really what it means to like have the best candidate for you in terms of hiring. It's like, who's going to be there for the long game? And that's, I feel like before, when I was overthinking, I didn't understand the long game, the big picture of things, and that's where overthinking sort of took over. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. I mean, like when I first started thinking of the term overthinking, I was just thinking about how, in business terms, right? And on the emotional side too, yeah, for sure. Like you were saying, recover. It's like, if I could put it in basketball terms, it's rebound, right? Like when I used to play ball, it was like, get that rebound, right? So it's because it's how you react. Like all these things around you can change and fall and tumble, but how are you going to, like you say, recover, get the rebound, react? What's your reaction to said disturbance over there? And you could easily take it and think about the worst case scenario, which is helpful. Like Kevin has a very good what is the worst that could happen? He has the fear set mindset, and it's helpful. In some ways it's toxic and annoying, but in ways it is helpful. This is something I learned reading the 4-Hour Work Week, the book that inspired me to quit my job. a long time ago, is to think about the worst case scenario. And when you do think about the worst case scenario, if and when you're not dead, or if you're not dead, it's really not the worst that could happen. Like, you could still get up, recover, and then move forward, right? And do better and learn. So definitely, yeah. Overthinking certainly has its way to dig its claws really deep in you. And then if you can find a way to kind of use it to your advantage, because it's going to happen. You are going to overthink, and you are going to kind of fall into the pitfalls of, like, sometimes humans, we like to wallow in pity, and we like to kind of just complain or maybe even vent or anything like that. Those are human things, human moments about us. But what matters is what you're going to do after.
I would say for myself, on the topic of overthinking, it happens quite often, of course, but I try not to let it even enter my mind. I try to live with the results, good or bad. If I'm gonna fail at something, then I just know I have to recover. In fact, that's the word I always tell myself is, if I mess up, just recover immediately. It's the first word I think of. If I send in a project to you, or if I submit photos that are, I know I could do better, my first thought is recover, recover, recover. And that lets me know to start the process on how I can improve and prepare for next time. So that way I'm not sitting there overthinking. For me, it's more of like a preparation. It's more of a how to get back to it, and instead of sitting there with my thoughts and saying I'm not good enough, or much worse things. So that's kind of my little take on how to bypass the overthinking process.
That's a great question. I think those lines can only be drawn by you, but because really it's you, the one in the end, who's going to either get up and do something, take action, or keep wallowing in the overthinking or the despair or the overwhelm of it. And what could help you is to be aware, right? So it sounds like you're already aware, and to know your triggers, your switches. I always allow myself a little bit of grieve time, a little self-pity time, because I don't know, I feel like if I don't do that, because I've come to know myself, and maybe that's the number one thing, is getting to know yourself, getting to know that all the emotions that you feel, be it like maybe you feel guilty for overthinking something, maybe you feel lazy or even sad or angry that it's still on your mind. Well, I think the most important thing during those times, because you're a human, is one, to go, okay, self-awareness is like, all right, I know that this emotion or this thing that I'm feeling about overthinking is valid. I think that's number one. I think everybody wants to be validated in how they feel. They don't like to be told that, oh, it's just, it's all in your head, or I had that and I got over it real quickly. It's like, I don't want to hear that. It's like, to me, in my reality, in my world, this is what I am experiencing. And sometimes most of the time, you can't get that validation from somebody else. And if you are relying on that validation from somebody else, it habitually makes you weaker in that you can't do it for yourself. So validate your own emotion. And this is harder, easier said than done. It's not that easy to do this, to remember that you have all the power to validate your own emotions. And we look for it in other people a lot, because maybe it feels better. It's better when somebody that you love and respect validates what you're feeling, and it gives you a sense of support. But in the end, it's you. At the end of the day, it's you that has to say, I'm sad right now that this is on my mind, or I'm upset, or I'm disheveled and distracted with this right now. And I always allow, when I realize that, I always allow myself to do that, to give myself that, to forgive that, to know that, hey, for maybe a day, I feel like really I'm thinking about it all day. Let's talk about, for example, I'm dealing with a rash right now. I have no idea what the cause of it is. I'm pretty sure, but now it's spreading everywhere. It's incredibly itchy and all kinds of things. And I went through like maybe a couple little moments during the day where I just wanted to wallow and scratch and tell everybody how painful and crappy this is right now and how uncomfortable I am. And I just really wanted to be validated. I wanted people to see that I'm suffering for some reason. That's a very human thing. Look at me suffer. But in the end, I realized, I'm like, why am I looking for that right now? Is it because right now I'm a little bit down because I'm not me. I'm not feeling like my normal, usual self. I don't look and feel my best. So my self-image is a little bit disrupted. But then I would think like, and this is kind of like lightning fast thinking now, but to slow it down, because I've done it so many times, to slow it down, I'd be like, why do I really need that? I can give it to myself. I don't need Kevin to validate that this sucks. It sucks, but like I could still do my thing. And I don't need anybody to feel sorry for me. I know it sucks, but it's temporary. So, okay. And then I just allow myself a couple of moments or hours or whatever. And sometimes it fluctuates like this. I just allow myself to feel that for me only, not expect it from somebody else, and just validate my own feelings. So that's the line for me. I believe all of your feelings, whether irrational or not, right? They're your reality. So in your mind, they're very real. And that's really all that matters. So for you, in your own mind, if this is the thing that you're experiencing, validate it. Okay. But now, like what you said, exactly, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do moving forward? Hey, I gave myself time to wallow and to feel sorry for myself and to be like, why am I going through this right now? And I gave myself all the time to do that. So it's not like I didn't give it any attention. And that's my way of getting attention. So I feel like as long as I've done that for me, I don't need anybody else to do it. And that helps me mentally and emotionally truly leave it and be like, okay, I dealt with you. I gave you the cookie, or I gave you the attention or the little hug that you needed, like your inner child or whatever that's whining and complaining. But now I need to move on now, right? So I know that sounds like really long, but mentally, once you practice that a lot, it's like mental judo with your ego. you get quicker as you keep doing the move, right? So until it becomes second nature, when you can realize it, the line for yourself, and validate your own feelings, it helps you, I think, have clarity, give it the time that it needs, giving yourself the human time that it needs, and then move forward.
Thing else that I'm curious about is that, do you believe that there's a healthy amount of, thinking or spending time on a thought, nursing an idea or vision? Where's that line where it's healthy and then it gets to, okay, I'm overthinking this too much to the point where I can't even get it started? So how would you describe that, to stay in a healthy state?
Yeah, definitely overthinking can lead to a sort of toxic state, and definitely can lead to an invention. Like if something is, troubling you, and you're like, dude, there's got to be a better way to do this. It could definitely lead to some positivity, productivity, light a fire under one's ass to go and get the thing that you need to go get, right? And yeah, there's just those ways that you could use things to the benefit of instead of like anger, for example, anger is a very powerful emotion. It could really, it's like fire. It could spread everywhere. It could destroy a lot of things. And that's how anger feels too, right? But in another way, anger could be like, dude, I'm fed up with living like this, or I'm fed up with settling for this type of life. I'm going to work as hard as I can because I'm so angry. I'm so angry with how things are run or something like that. And I'm going to start my own business. And I definitely have a lot of experience with that. Like when I quit my hazmat job, I was so upset that I had to try to fit into this thing in order to make a certain amount of money. And it still felt so unfulfilling and spirit killing. And I was like, dude, there must be a better way. And also when I discovered how kind of shady, like all the things that are supposed to serve and protect you, like say government, like we're all going through that right now, how angry maybe one can feel learning that, maybe our benefits aren't delivered on time or things like this. And, having that overthinking mind can definitely go, well, how can we make this freaking better? Because we're not doing so well right now. So yeah, you could definitely use overthinking in a positive way, and like you say, putting action to that emotion or to that overthinking. 100% agree is a more productive and better way of doing that.
For myself, I would imagine that being in a healthy state comes with the idea of being productive. Putting thoughts onto paper. I think as long as there's an action that comes with the thought process, I think that's always going to keep you in a healthy state of mind. I think when you're just trapped in your head too much, and maybe you're doubting yourself, or you're poking fun at yourself, I think that's when it starts to get to that line of, okay, this is going into a negative zone. I would say that as long as like you're putting thoughts to paper, you're getting things physically materialize, I think that's, to me, a sign of a good and healthy thought process, and early beginnings of a grand vision or idea. So what I'd be curious about next is, what about the times where a decision needs to be made quite quickly and there's just no time to even sit there and dwell on your thoughts? What do you do in a situation like that, where naturally you're going to want to sit there and go over all the variables, but time is of the essence and something needs to be done? Can you explain what you might do in that situation?
Great question. One of those things was today, like deciding to tell you to stop work now. Like, B, you got to stop work right now because I can't technically pay you. I think in those times when you have to make a split decision and there's no time to even consider and even get to overthinking, which you would think you would like to do in any business situation because you want it to be covered on all bases, you want to consider the pros and the cons of things. And in these cases, what I did, and she and I have a conversation very quickly, I go, what's most important right now is that B does not lose his skills. So for whatever time that we do spend with him, we can drop all the marketing expectations of him and we'll just go, okay, number one is come back and always work on your skills. We're going to come back at some point and we want to be ready for that. So we really don't want to lose the foundation and the base that we have for you, right? So that's what I said to you, is like, stop working on marketing. And number one is to focus on the skills. We don't want to let your skills, your number one role in this company, and I think what is definitely your best moneymaker as well. Well, maybe not your best moneymaker, but definitely one of your really good skills that you have right now. Don't want to lose them. Definitely want to keep building upon them. So I would say that's the number one priority. So in those cases, it's triage. It's priority. What takes precedent in those situations? In an emergent situation, you got to think big picture very quickly. What's the most important? You think priorities, and then make a decision from there. And lastly, like sometimes even if it's not considering, say, the example I gave you with, OKB, we have to, let B know to stop working right away. Maybe it's a situation where maybe you're jumping into a situation, maybe you're investing time and energy into something that you don't know is a sure thing, right? Or maybe to me it was like, even hiring you, I had to go with my gut, I go, well, there's this guy who looks really good on paper, looks like he has all the skills, and he definitely had more equipment than you, B. And I said, actually what's most important, I think, in this time, it's not that I didn't have time to overthink, is that I already knew overthinking was incorrect. And at this point I was like, I have to trust my instincts and trust that what I see on paper is not exactly what I need to make the decision. What I do need is to figure out what kind of person this is, and I feel like this is the type of person who I can talk to and have a conversation with, or even spend hours and hours working together with somebody. So I have to look at the things that matter, I think, and then let that sort of influence me. And when I'm paying attention to what matters, I think I am intuitively listening and trusting who I am, as I'm the filter, right, for this decision. I'm like, well, I'm making the decision, and it's on me, right? It's on me to make this decision. So I kind of have to trust me. I have to trust me to deal with the consequences, ups and downs, good surprises, bad surprises, and just take them as they come.
For myself, it's not a situation that comes up pretty often for me, but I do know that naturally I would make a decision based on my gut feeling or intuition, and honestly I would live with the results, good or bad. And if they're good, great. If they're bad, then if the result is bad, then I would have to deal with the consequences, recover, and try to figure out how I can climb back from it. And yeah, as you can see, just trying to bypass the overthinking stage where maybe I'm dwelling or fall into a negative space. I try not even to get to that point. So that's what I would do, is I would live with the consequences, and if they were bad, try to put action to it almost immediately. I think something that we can all agree on, is a lot of times when we're thinking so much about something, the reality is almost completely different. A lot of the times the experience is not what we imagined it to be at all, for better or for worse. So can you talk about that feeling that you may see from sitting there and spending so much time worrying or planning, and then going to the final result of, wow, that was not what I expected at all? Can you talk about that process and that feeling, and how funny it is sometimes that it's just completely the opposite?
Dude, yeah. So I've had some of this experience and this feeling of like thinking it's going to be one thing and it's going to be this, and then turning into something like, oh, cool, that wasn't so bad. Most of those experiences in business for me on my end are, oh crap, maybe I get a client complaint, or a little bit of like jab, or something went not 100% correct or right, and so I'll be like, crap, man, and then I'm thinking about all of the ways in which, say perhaps this client will think of ways to like attack us or destroy our company or leave a bad review, and my overthinking can go that way really quickly in the business, like when I think about the reputation. And usually more often than not, because I trust myself in the first initial response to a complaint or something amiss, is calmness. I mean, I'm freaking out on the inside, like, oh no, you're not happy. But then on my email, I'm very calm. I'm very like stable, and I want to be as understanding but as fair and as possible, right? So those are usually in the business side of things, where I find that my freaking out is usually whittled down to like, okay, you've explained your side, you've explained it, and that makes sense. And the most 100% of the time, we're not being malicious. So when somebody feels that genuine thing in your emails or in your words or in your voice, like a lot of times any big mountain that you've made in your head about the legacy of my brand and of this company, is at stake. Totally whittles down to, okay, we get it, we understand, like something like that. In my personal life, not the case. I like out of default make things so mountain out of a molehill a lot of times, and it's usually having to deal with my marriage. This is the only interaction I get here, and I go, why'd you do that? I'll be like, why'd you do that? And your gut reaction, your reptile brain goes, why'd you do that to me? Right? Your ego goes, why'd you do that to me? And I would spend a lot of time, a lot before, not so much now. I'm a little bit more self-aware, a little bit more educated, a little bit more patient, right? But when I was less mature in the past, I definitely take something that was not a, maybe it was a small thing done to me, or feeling like it was done to me, a small thing. But then in my mind, I'm like, yeah, but you've done all of these small things to me, right? So I start overthinking this huge thing, this huge negative narrative about how you're always dissing me like this. And I get like super, I start tallying, start taking score, it's super toxic. And yeah, definitely not healthy. And it's super easy to go that way because, again, it's coming from a place of ego, and it's probably also coming from a place of hurt that maybe, one time you got, hurt or wrongfully accused of something, or somebody said something to you one time, and you took that and you marked it on the scoreboard with permanent marker. And just, it never got to be wiped off, and so you start keeping score.
From sitting there and spending so much time worrying or planning, and then going to the final result of, wow, that wasn't.
But to get back on track, there were so many times that I would think Kevin would not understand something about me, about my perspective, and maybe that, yes, that was half true, but I would be almost so accepting that he didn't get it, and be like, you'll never get it, you'll never change, like this, and not even allowing somebody to try to understand what I was going through. So definitely I would overthink and stay stuck and stay attached to this label that he doesn't get it, he doesn't understand, he's just like that. Like all of these little labels that I put onto somebody that may have been true one or two times, and I started to believe that every time there was that little thing, I would start to overthink, like, man, he's just like this all the time. Like, what the hell? So definitely a toxic place to be in. Whereas usually nowadays I'm just like, okay, I don't feel good. Like, I don't like how that feels. I'm just going to, I'm going to write it down, and then I'm going to bring it up in a calm manner next time. That's how I do it now. I'll be like, when you say that, or you say things like that to me, it doesn't make me feel very good. And I try to cut off my emotion, and I feel like I look like a really scary person, but that's what I have to do. Like, I have to psycho out of that thing, I have to turn on the little, like, psycho mode where I don't feel anything, so that I can just say what I need to say without emotion getting in the way of the interpreting what I need to say.
Personally, I've been almost always pleasantly surprised because I do consider myself to be an overthinker for sure. And I wouldn't say I'm a negative thinker or anything like that, but a lot of times I'm more happy with the results of what's happening, even if I mess up, even if I go in there thinking I'm going to do a great job and I don't do so hot. It's a humbling experience in that way, and it helps me to learn and kind of look at myself and say, hey, you didn't know what you were doing, but now you're going to. At least you start the first steps of learning what you actually have to do. So even if it's what someone would say a negative thing, it's actually not. For me, it's a learning process, and I get excited even when that happens. So things are either going to be better than I thought, or I'll be humbled, which is still good for me. So a lot of the times, almost all the times, are good experiences in my personal opinion.
Yeah, and it's such a great thing that you have that perspective, because that's the resilience that one needs to really just survive in life. Not survive, but thrive. Thrive in life. When you can roll with the punches, maybe get knocked down a couple of times. I know that I had immense pride when I started to talk about all of the hardships that I've dealt with and be vocal about it and give voice to it and say, yeah, that happened to me. That humbled me. Damn it. And there was a lot of times where I would be so ashamed of some of the stories that I have, but when I started to hear and learn that I could own these stories, and they didn't own me, they didn't define me, they were just chapters in my life where I learned something really good that time. I now wear those stories with pride, and I'm just now getting really used to owning my bankruptcy story. I own the bankruptcy story really quickly, but the story about myself that I was somebody's mistress or side piece, like, I didn't own that until like recently when I did my why statement with Kevin earlier on one of the shows. You can check back to episode number 12, I think. That was a time where and talking about that with Kevin was super cool too, because I was just trying to own the stories that I have. So definitely that is the attitude of one who is resilient and who will thrive in life.
Okay, Meg, time for the shutter speed questions, if you're ready. First question is, when was the last time you totally quit on something? Where you just, hands up, I can't do this.
The last time I totally quit on something was the massage chair. The stupid massage chair. You already told you this off camera, but like, the freaking massage chair, man. I was like, fuck this shit, man. And like, she tried to keep going back and fix it. I was like, you broke it, dude. Like, fine, whatever. I may call them, but like, whatever. I threw my hands up about that one.
Second question, when is the last time you overcame a big fear or anxiety?
Definitely the last time I overcame big fear or anxiety was the side chick story. I've been wanting to tell that story for a long time, and there's more to it actually. So now that I've taken the first step to that, I think I've already said it. I get things kind of mixed up, but like there's more to that story. I feel like I was a lot more clearer and a lot more concise with my why statement thing, saying that I was somebody else's like mistress or whatever. But yeah, that was a big step for me, because I've been trying to tell that story, and it really it had a lot of shame still associated with it, and I am still ashamed about it, but still at the same time, I'm not really that, I don't cower away from saying it anymore when I used to.
Third question is, sweet or sour?
That's hard. Okay. Sour.
And last shutter speed question is, if you could have a superpower of super speed or super intelligence, which one would you choose?
Dude, super intelligence. You can go fast. I already go fast. All right, I already go fast. So, I need to be smarter.
For myself to answer the questions, the last time I quit something was maybe 3 years ago when I didn't want to do music anymore and I stopped playing music altogether. However, that's changed now. I turned that around. So we just released music. So that was the last time I completely gave up on something. Last time I overcame a fear or anxiety, every day. I try to push myself, even when I'm jogging and I feel like I can't make it to the street light, or I feel like I'm gonna pass out or black out. I keep pushing, and then I get surprised. So I try to push myself, every day if I can. Sweet or sour? Sweet for sure. I would choose the power of super intelligence for sure. Speed is cool, but I think it's a lot better if you just know so much about everything. And yeah, how can you beat that? All right, so we talked quite a bit about the process of overthinking and how it's very common for people who are visionaries, entrepreneurs, or I think it's just a common thing in everybody, but we all have different ways of overcoming it and pushing past it. So we got to share a little bit about that, and it was great conversation, I'm sure, right? I'll hear your thoughts soon when it's all edited together. But as always, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
The best, man. So thank you, B, for putting this together. As always, you're a freaking star on the video. And
Thank you for listening to the KLV Podcast. Learn more about us at kevinlavueweddings.com or on Instagram @kevinlavu @KLV Podcast. You can rate and review us on iTunes and watch us on YouTube. Join us next time, sharing more of our experiences and lessons.